Perfect. Good. Welcome, Wing Chun Talk. Thanks for joining in today. My special guest with me today is Colin Young, the head instructor over at Sunny Tang Ottawa. I have the pleasure of chatting with him today. So thanks, Colin, for being with me.
No, thanks for having me on the show. Looking forward to it. That's good.
Yeah, I appreciate we could make it happen. It's been interesting times lately, but I got some time today. So I like I said, I appreciate you spending that with me.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
It's always a good time to talk Kung Fu. So.
Totally. Yeah. I know you got some plans this evening too. You're shooting some video for your club. So we'll keep on time here. So.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So before I won't mess around. Just kind of want to jump right in, get to know you a little bit, get to know how you got into Wing Chun, how you ended up being the head instructor over at Sunny Tang Ottawa. Yeah, please tell me your journey.
Tell me my life story. All right.
Yeah. The Wing Chun story.
Yeah. Okay. I'll start a little bit, kind of a little pre-Wing Chun. So I started training in Taekwondo actually 30 years ago this year. So my brother and I were driving my mom nuts. My dad was gone away on a course for work, and my brother and my mom was going crazy. So she said, "You guys got to find an outlet for your energy." So anyway, we ended up joining Taekwondo back in 1990. I did that for probably a good 14 years. Wow. So I used to actually teach Taekwondo for a job. I did that for a little while. And I ran 2 different schools here in the Ottawa area. Unfortunately, it got a lot political, and I wasn't really enjoying it as much anymore. I was getting up and going to work every day instead of enjoying the martial arts, passionate kind of side of things. So I decided to go back to school. I went to college, back to college again for a couple of years. And when college finished, I moved back to Ottawa. And then I was looking for something new. So I tried out a couple of different things. Aikido, I did some jiu-jitsu, I did a little bit of kendo, but I never tell anybody that I did those arts. It was literally just trials, like a month here, a month there, or whatever.
Sure.
But I had a good friend of mine that I grew up with. So we were growing up in high school and stuff. I was doing Taekwondo and he was doing karate, and he had joined Wing Chun. And he kept telling me like, "Oh, you should come and try Wing Chun, and you should come and try in Wing Chun." And I'm like, "Oh man, it's just not really for me. I'm not. I didn't know too much about it, honestly. But everything that I had seen, it just didn't kind of jive with me. So, but he was really persistent. So I thought, you know what, the only way to get this guy to cut it out is if I actually go and try a class. So I said, okay, fine. I'm going to come and try the class and see how it is. And basically, they say, the rest is history. Totally. I tried the first class. I spent a lot of time in the first class with one of my Sehings, Doug. It was very interesting what he was teaching and that sort of stuff. So I thought, okay, I'll come back for a second trial class just to make sure. And then at that point, I got to spend a lot of time with my Sifu. And it was really his passion for what he was teaching, really more than the Wing Chun that ended up having me join the club. I always tell people, looking back at it, honestly, if he had been teaching people how to knit, then I would be a master scarf and toque maker. Like
that's awesome.
So the fact that it ended up being Wing Chun was just a lucky byproduct for me. So my Sifu was a school teacher for his career. He taught school, and then he taught Wing Chun, kind of on the side, just because he just had such a great passion for teaching. So I kind of got lucky there. So nice. So I joined Wing Chun. I still consider myself a pretty new guy when it comes to Wing Chun. I joined Wing Chun in 2004.
Okay.
And I was training here in Ottawa, and I was training for about 7 years. And then 2011, my job had me relocate to North Bay, Ontario. So it's like about a 4-hour drive away. And so I thought, okay, I looked up some stuff in North Bay, and there was no Wing Chun there. So when I went to have a meeting with my Sifu and say, hey, Sifu, I've got some bad news. I have to move up to North Bay, which is kind of close to where he's originally from anyway. So he knows North Bay. And I said, yeah, there's no Wing Chun up there. And he said, that's okay. There will be when you get there. I thought, oh, great.
Nice.
So I mean, depends on how you want to look at it. I kind of became a Sifu by default. I moved up there, and my only options for continuing my training were to open a school and get some students of my own. I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to do that. And then I also got a phone call from my Sigang, and he said, hey, I heard you're moving to North Bay. I think it would be a great idea if you open a club up in North Bay. So here I am getting a little bit of pressure.
Good pressure, obviously.
Yeah, good pressure, for sure. Yeah. But to be truthful, I did look around. I did check out some of the other martial arts clubs in town, just to see if there was any chance that there was something that was going to lure me away, something that I wanted to try that was maybe different. But I also started to think about it, and try to be a little bit less selfish about the whole thing. So here I was. I just spent the last 7 years with my Sifu learning Wing Chun. And I don't, how do you want to say this? I learned the entire system. I'm not, professing to be some kind of Wing Chun master or anything, but I learned all the 6 forms and everything else in the Yip Man lineage. So here I was given this gift, from my Sifu. He spent a lot of time and invested in me, and there's really no way that I could ever pay him back, right? Like we always say at the club, what you're paying for is the rent and the hydro, keeping the lights on and paying for the water and the heat and that sort of stuff. You're not paying for the Kung Fu. The Kung Fu is free because there's no way you could ever afford it, right? It's a priceless gift. Mm-hmm. So this was something that my Sifu had shared with me. And I thought, they're really the only true way to even attempt to pay him back is to share that gift with other people.
I love that.
So, I decided, okay, here I am going to open up a school in a city that I just moved to. How am I going to pull that off? So I hopped online. I did a Google search for yoga, dance, Pilates type studios.
Yeah.
And I started looking for people that had, spaces in their schedule. And I found this one spot. And I said, hey, do you want to rent out your space, for a couple hours on this night? You're not using it. It'll be extra income for you. She said, hey, that's great. So I threw an ad up on Kijiji, and within a couple hours, I had 3 replies, I think. And so my very first night I opened up, I had 4 students, and that was kind of it. So I was teaching up in North Bay. That was 2012 by the time that started.
Okay.
And I taught up there right up until I left. So I left North Bay in October of 2018.
Okay.
So I had an opportunity with work to come back to Ottawa. It was a very difficult decision. I wanted to be in Ottawa. I had never wanted to move to North Bay. But now after having been up there and started a club, and I have students of my own and new friends and all this sort of stuff, the decision to move back was it was a tough one. But I knew if I didn't take that opportunity, it probably wasn't going to come up again in my career for quite a few years, if at all. It would have to be, until kind of retirement age. Gotcha. So I decided to jump on it, to take it. And it's funny timing how that worked out, because my Sifu was getting a little older and his wife's getting a little older. And he had already retired from teaching school years ago. And when I moved back to Ottawa, I think I was back 1 week, and he called me up and said, hey, let's go for dinner. And then I knew where this conversation was going.
yeah, come for dinner. Yeah,
come for dinner. Let's go grab a beer and a burger. So we went out, and he basically said, look, I've been kind of waiting for an opportunity to kind of step back from the Wing Chun. He'll never stop teaching. He'll only stop teaching when life's over for him. But he doesn't want to run the class in the club anymore. So he basically he said to me, are you willing to take over the club? run the main classes. He'd be the head instructor, that sort of stuff. And he still uses the club. He teaches private classes during the daytime. So he has a couple of the senior students that, over the years, their jobs have changed and stuff like that. So they can't come to evening classes.
Yeah.
Since he's retired. So yeah, they go in there like, 10 o'clock in the morning or whatever, noon, and, they play around all day, but he just does private lessons now. So
that's awesome for both, I think. Like,
great
opportunity for you and good timing for him. You just kind of coming back.
Yeah, like I said, it just kind of worked out. So I think the official takeover date was January 1st of 2019. We went, okay, here's the swap. And nice. We've kind of been, so I've been kind of coasting along since.
Perfect. Nice. How's it been going then? Like, I mean, I kind of want to dig into a couple different areas, but like, yeah, like, can I jump into North Bay? Like, I mean, was that a struggle to get going, or was it just it just naturally progressed from a few students?
It had its ups and downs. North Bay was very interesting. So like I said, the first day I had 4 students showed up. One of the students had previous experience in martial arts. So actually his wife was a student at the Pilates studio that I was teaching out of. He had been doing Goju karate and jiu-jitsu for say 10 or 11 years. And he was kind of looking for something new. And it's funny because, of course, he tells you after, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. Yeah. It just worked out that way. But yeah, so, and I'll fast forward really quickly. He's actually the one now running the club there.
Oh, cool.
So it wasn't him exactly in the beginning, but so no, it's North Bay was good. It had its ups and downs. For such a small town, North Bay is about 50,000 people.
Okay.
It's actually fairly heavy in the martial arts school. If you want to say number of schools per population.
Yeah.
So a lot of the clubs are. I mean, I'm not saying anything against any of them, but none of them are huge, right? I mean, you got to remember, I came from Ottawa, so I was running a club here in West End, Ottawa when I left. When I was teaching Taekwondo, there were 300 students there. So, to go to North Bay of 50,000 people, there's a lot of little clubs there. And it's cool because they're actually pretty tight-knit family up there in the martial arts. And it was one thing that I found that was really cool living up there was they don't have the same politics that we do in some of the bigger cities. So like down here, we can't train with the judo guys because they hate the Wing Chun. And, you get all that kind of like inter-school fighting.
Sure.
Up there, they don't seem to have as big of a problem with that. It's like, okay, if you tried my, judo school and you don't like it, and you think you're more of a stand-up kind of person, you're looking for a good cardio workout, then, go see so-and-so that teaches kickboxing. They kind of all work together out there. So I found that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
There, it turns out there was kind of actually, I didn't know about it, but there was a guy who was already teaching Wing Chun in North Bay. It was just kind of like a little side thing for him. He was a wushu instructor. And then he ended up going to the traditional Kung Fu World Championships over in China. I don't remember when it was, probably back in like 2011 or 12, 13, somewhere around there anyway. And the guys that he was with, some of them on the team were from our club, not the North Bay club, but from the overall family. And they were chatting with this guy. And he's like, "Oh yeah, I live in North Bay." And he said, "Oh, do you know Colin?" He's like, "No, I never heard of the guy." And he's like, "Okay, well, you better get in touch with him when you get back." So anyway, I ended up, I come home one day and there's this message on my machine, and it's this other guy. He's like, "Hey, these guys told me to get in touch with you. Apparently you teach Wing Chun." But so he wanted to pull the plug on Wing Chun and focus strictly on wushu. So he had a couple of students that he was hoping that I would kind of take over teaching at the club too. So
nice.
But yeah, overall it was an interesting experience. Like I said,
you didn't team up with him. I'm sorry to kind of cut you off.
Yeah, no, we didn't end up teaming up. Like I said, he ended up he was doing the wushu thing when he's into the modern wushu, which very acrobatic and very physical, all that sort of stuff, which is really cool to watch. I love going to watch wushu competitions, and it looks awesome in the movies, but it's just definitely not for me. I'm like 6'1", I weigh 240 pounds. It's I'm not a wushu guy.
Well, tell me a little bit about that then. Like, how did Taekwondo fit for you? Like, I mean, because I mean,
Yeah. I
are you
mean,
flexible? Are you a flexible guy?
I was,
Yeah.
like I said, I started when I was young, right? So I started when I was a kid, and Taekwondo was, to me, it was really fun. I loved it. I wasn't into it necessarily because of the self defense aspect. It was just, I'm not an athletic guy. Not necessarily a huge fan of the term, but you want to say I was the nerd in school, right? Like I could play badminton okay.
Just I'm going to tell people you made the quotations with your fingers around.
Yeah, okay. In case I forgot, some of the people are just getting the podcast. So yeah, sorry, the air quotes there. I was a super nerd in school, right? Like I was academic, not athletic at all. Like I said, badminton was probably the only thing that I was okay at. I wouldn't even say I was good at it. It was just my best sport, the best of the worst. But Taekwondo, I got really good at it just because I enjoyed it so much. It was something that I pushed myself through. I pushed really hard. Like I said, I did it for 14 years.
Yeah.
So, and there was days, times in my life I was literally doing it 7 days a week. Sundays we were training for 4 to 5 hours a day when I was training. So it was something that I really, really enjoyed. And it was sad to leave. Like I said, now that I'm not a Taekwondo guy anymore, I am definitely a Wing Chun guy through and through.
Of course, yeah. No, I just playing on the wushu, the kind of the more acrobatic. And it's funny you say that because a previous colleague of mine did Taekwondo when he was younger, and then kind of went into the club, a different club, and the skill came back to him fairly quick, and he started running some of the classes as well, and just kind of told me how they run things, and it seems really enjoyable, really like lots of different things kind of going on, and so I could see it being fun.
Yeah, when I joined Wing Chun, in the beginning, obviously it was all very new to me, totally different from Taekwondo. So I had a lot to learn, but to me there was something that was still missing, and I couldn't place what it was. I didn't know what was missing for myself, and it took me years to figure it out. And what it was the teaching aspect of it. I actually missed teaching Taekwondo. I missed teaching and sharing that knowledge. Right? It was. And it wasn't an ego thing. Like I just really genuinely enjoyed working with other people and helping them improve. So it, like you said, it just turned out lucky. Later on, I ended up kind of teaching Wing Chun, right? So
natural progression, really. How did you find though, like going from the time you did train to being kind of thrown into the guy? And right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you move to a new place, and all of a sudden, here you go, Colin.
Yeah, being able to ask questions one day and being the guy who's answering the questions the next.
Yeah.
It keeps you honest. There's nothing to hide behind. When you're the person standing at the front of the room, you better know what you're doing. And if you don't know the answer to the question, definitely shouldn't be something you should be making up. It should be prompting you to say, okay, here's a hole in my training. Here's a hole in my knowledge. You know what? Number one, I'll get back to you with an answer. But two, for myself, it definitely is one of the spots where it can help you with improvement, right? When you're training on, you're the student and you're working with the other, Kung Fu brothers and sisters in the club, you can obviously see progression, and get help from everybody, and including your Sifu. When you're the one running the class, it can be a lot harder, right? Like here I am, and I'm not saying I had, I'm not an expert or anything, but I was 7 years up on the people that I was teaching. They're on day one, and I'm on year 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Which in the Wing Chun, life now, looking back on it, it's still not that long, right? Like it's, when I joined my club, I was the most junior guy for a while here in Ottawa. And the other thing that I found interesting was probably 50% or more of the people in our class at that time had black belts in other arts. Okay, so more than 50% of them were karate black belts or Taekwondo black belts. Even my Sifu, he has a funny story where he was learning karate in university. This is way back in the 70s. He was going to university, and he was learning karate. And in the end, it was his karate sensei told him, like, hey, you know what? You need to go find Wing Chun. And it was only because he listened to his sensei that he ended up joining Wing Chun.
No kidding, eh?
So yeah, it was funny. Our school was kind of like that, where we had a lot of guys with previous experience. So it helped me out a lot because one of the guys actually at the club, he wasn't at my same school, but he was in the same Taekwondo family as I was. So a lot of the habits that I had to fix or change and that sort of stuff, he had already kind of gone through that. It took him years to fix them up, and then lucky for me, I kind of got the easy road where he was able to point out my stance errors, because that was one thing I find in Wing Chun. Sometimes you're better off coming in with a clean slate, right? You don't have habits. So when I came from the Taekwondo background, if I was focusing, say, solely on my hands, right? Let's just talk about a nice simple Wing Chun term like a tan sao, for example. Okay, so if I'm talking about a tan sao, so I'm focusing on keeping my fingers in, and my palm is up, my thumb is tucked, and my palm is to the sky, and I want to have my wrist on my center line and all this sort of stuff. And this is all brand new to me. My feet are doing Taekwondo things, right? Because they naturally do what they know what to do. And then, so one of my Sihings, Bill, he'd be like, hey, Taekwondo stance, fix your feet. I'm like, oh, thanks. So then you start paying attention to your feet, and then your hands become garbage because they're going back to the Taekwondo.
Well, no kidding, because 14 years at anything, those are some solid habits, right? So, to kind of move through them, either you need to notice them or someone has to point them out what you're doing, right?
Absolutely. So, and like I said, for me, it was just lucky. It was pure luck that some of the guys had already been through all these things before, and it really helped. I don't want to say I caught up to them, but I probably progressed faster than they did because of the benefit of having them in the class, right? Like, say whatever. Something A to B took them 2 years. It might have only taken me 1, only because they were there to help me, not because I was better than they were, right? But they, like you said, they could point out the errors. Everybody in the class had lots of good tips because they all had previous experience in other arts.
Were you also saying it was kind of like top heavy in the sense of like the skill level was, because you were one of the newest guys for a long time, you had lots of skilled practitioners, or was it just skilled because they had other experience in other martial arts?
No, so when I joined, my Sifu had been teaching, the school had been open for about, say, 15 years or so. And there was a few guys that had been there for more than 10 years who were still all training with him all the time. So gotcha. Here I come in day one, and some of these guys have been training for 10 or 15 years. So I know there was definitely a significant skill difference between A and B.
Fun.
So it's great. Your Sifu guides you and gives you ideas and kind of shows you the path. But in the end, it's your Kung Fu brothers and sisters that end up teaching you the actual Kung Fu, because they're the ones that you're working with all the time, right? It's I'm not saying you don't get any opportunity to train with your Sifu, but he's one person that's got to walk around the room, where the person that you're training with at that moment in time, they're the ones that's actually teaching you the Kung Fu.
Yeah, I love that.
And like I said, I was lucky that I had all these seniors that were kind of in the class. I know not a lot of the Wing Chun schools. I think actually you guys use a belt system, right?
Yeah, we do.
In your Wing Chun school, and so do we. And I know a lot of people, they don't like that idea. They say, traditionally Kung Fu doesn't have belts or sashes, and so anyone with belts and sashes is terrible. So well, traditionally they also didn't teach anyone who's non-Chinese, so I wouldn't be learning it either if we stuck to all the traditions. But
true, right?
No, my Sifu was, like I said, I mentioned before that he was a school teacher, right? Yeah. So he's very much grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, that kind of progression. So for us, it was just natural, I think, for him to say, okay, look, we have 6 forms in the system. So I'm going to split the system up into 6, and we'll have a colored sash for each one of those, positions in the system. And it's not like, okay, I'm finally got a whatever purple or pink belt or orange, whatever color system you're using. It's more just easy for him if there's a room of so many people. he can just naturally look and say, oh, okay, Shawn's having a little trouble with his danchi style, for example. But of course he is, because he's at that sash level where, he's expected to have a little bit of trouble. Whereas if the more senior guy is having trouble, he's going, what the heck? How come that guy is so sloppy today? He should have that under his belt,
Right.
So.
Yeah. So it's broken down for kind of 6 sashes in is that the whole like the Sunny Tang kind of?
Yeah. So just for those that maybe don't know the lineage, so it goes Yip Man, Moyat, Sunny Tang, and down from there. So Sunny Tang is up here in Canada. The Moyat guys, and when I say that, I'll say like the Moyat guys who joined Moyat when he was in the States. Okay, so after Moyat left Hong Kong and came to New York, most of the guys that trained under him there, they don't follow a sash system, but they still break the system up. They use different terms, and I mean, I'm not saying they all do this, but I think they call them like a domain. They say, oh, like you're in the Silam Tao domain, or you're in the Chum Kyu domain, or whatever. So just because they're not wearing a sash doesn't mean that the system's not split up. But no, in the Sunny Tang family, I think originally they didn't necessarily have sashes, but in the Sunny Tang, so Sunny Tang himself, he's a Wing Chun guy. He learned from Moyat. But we also, in the Sunny Tang family overall, we also have Wushu, and we have a lot of the Wushu kids and that sort of stuff. And since the kids use the sash system in Wushu to track their progress and that sort of stuff, it was just kind of natural for us to come up with that too. Mm-hmm. One thing that my Sifu did, is he wrote a manual, and the manual is specific to our family. It's specific to our style of Wing Chun, if you will. But the reason why he did that was it's his school teacher background, right?
Yeah.
He took everything that you need to know at the Silam Tao level, and he wanted to make sure that nothing got missed. Okay, so he made a curriculum, and so he wrote a book about it, and basically that kind of became the basis for the different sash levels in our family. And that's the nice part, is we've got clubs all over the country. So like I said, I was here in Ottawa when I was training, and then work would send me to Montreal, okay, to work for the week. Perfect. I go to Montreal, and my options are hang around my hotel room all night or go find the local Wing Chun club, and it's a Sunny Tang club. So you show up there, and the guys are wearing the sashes. You don't have to know who anybody is. You know who the people are, at what level they're training, and all that sort of stuff, just based on the color of the sash that they're wearing.
Nice. And can you slide into whatever level? Like, I mean, because it's so systemized, I guess, would you be able to slide in with those guys and train with them?
Absolutely. And that's it, right? So, and conversely, they know what level you're at, right? Because you show up and you say, okay, I'm a red sash, right? They know exactly where you are in the system. They know, okay, this guy's learning Chum Kyu. This guy is, he should be, progressing in Chi Sao. He should, be really, not too bad at his hand drills. Starting to learn how to do shifting and all this sort of stuff. So it's very easy to pick up, and it's like that club to club. So we're literally coast to coast. Starting in 2013, I started making trips every couple of years out to BC. So we have a club out in Victoria, gorgeous spot in the country. Jump on the plane, fly out there, walk in the room, and within minutes, I can tell even people I've never met before what they should be working on, what they're learning, where they're at in the system, because we all use the same color system.
Oh, wow.
So it just, again, I know it's not traditional for Kung Fu to use the sash system, and that's fine. I'm not saying that you have to, but it works well for us. And so that's
awesome. And random question, any in Alberta? You got any clubs? Are they down in Calgary or where?
We do, yeah. There's a club in Calgary. It's, I think, one of the only ones in Canada that I haven't been to. So I do need to get out there. Like I said, I think there's 2 clubs in Canada left in the Sunny Tang family that I haven't been to, and that's definitely one of them.
There, Colin, or is that by choice that you maybe like would take a trip, and or is that through like the clubs? No,
it's by choice. Yeah, I mean, Wing Chun's a big part of my life now, so I'd like to take a vacation. And I mean, Calgary's a nice spot, right? You can zip up to Lake Louise from there, and you can you can come north, maybe up to Edmonton, Sherwood Park, and meet some people up there. When you're out in Alberta, you always got to go and check out the dinosaurs and the hoodoos and all that fun and stuff too, right? So
right.
Pack Wing Chun on as an excuse to go.
Awesome. No, that's super cool.
No, we've the guys out in Calgary. Like I said, I've never been to the club. Their original Sifu now. He's down in Atlanta, Georgia. So he's running the club down in Atlanta. And one of the students in Calgary took over the club. But yeah, they've come to Ontario lots of times. The main Sunny Tang school is in Toronto. It's in Scarborough. So we've met them over the years lots of times. We've even traveled to China on a couple of trips with those guys for various things, competitions, and that sort of stuff. So
awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I was going to kind of ask a little bit too, when you were in North Bay there, how you would connect with your Sifu. I know it's what, a 4-hour drive you said, that's a substantial drive, but I mean, maybe not, right? Like,
yeah, it's funny. I find you tell people from outside the country, I don't want to pick on anyone in particular, but random European country number 7, you tell them that you got to drive 4 hours, and they're like, oh my god, that's across the country. It's like, in Ontario, you can drive for 25 hours and not even leave the province. So a 4-hour drive is nothing, right? Yeah. It's actually faster for me to drive to Disney World in Florida than it is to drive out to Manitoba. So,
oh wow, yeah.
Ontario is pretty big, right? So, but no, I would keep in touch with my Sifu all the time. We would chat on the phone quite regularly. It was also always a pleasure to bring my students down to meet him, right? Mm-hmm. So bring them down. We would come down for a weekend and kind of train. He gets to see my students, kind of give me some tips on some things that maybe, I might need some work on with my teaching, give the students some tips. For any Wing Chun student, anytime they get a chance to train with their Sigung instead of their Sifu is definitely a great opportunity. So everybody loved it. I mean, 4 hours in a car on a Wing Chun road trip is not a long drive. So
totally. Yeah. And so that developed into, did you end up getting a club, like a standalone club, or did you do the community location or the Pilates club?
So we stuck kind of with the community idea up there. One thing that if I go back to my Taekwondo that I talked about briefly, when that became my job, it became a little bit less passionate for me and more like I was going to work every day. So by the time I decided to open the club in North Bay, like I said, I have a pretty decent Monday to Friday day job. Right. So I didn't need the income. So I promised myself North Bay was going to be a nonprofit club. So I taught there for 7 years, 6 years, I guess, 6.5 years. And I never made a dime off the club. The rule was whatever the rent was, that was split by the number of students in the club. They covered the rent. So by sticking to the community thing and renting, we were able to keep the classes fairly cheap and affordable for people. And, so that made a big difference to a lot of people because, again, without getting into pricing, but here in Ottawa, you can be paying, $100 a month is a cheap martial arts school here in town. Wow. So we were able to keep it super cheap in North Bay by going nonprofit, right? So
excellent. That's an excellent idea.
Yeah, so we decided the club still today shares space with a yoga studio. So there's a yoga studio up there that they're sharing space with. My student Mike is currently the one running the club up there in North Bay. They were actually just here on the weekend. 4 of them drove down for a Wing Chun road trip to come down and train. Hang out, go out for dinner, talk kung fu all night till 3 a.m, and then they had the long drive back, and I got to relax.
Nice. That sounds awesome. So, what are you talking? A couple nights a week? Is that club open or like 3?
Yeah, right now in Ottawa, we're open 3 days a week. So we do Tuesdays and Thursdays. We're 7 till 9, so it's a 2-hour class, and then Saturdays we're 10 till noon. So we're doing 3 days a week. Like I mentioned, my Sifu does some private classes during the day. So that's kind of like by appointment or whenever he's available. Typically they do stuff on Fridays, Thursdays, or Fridays. And then there's other guys like other senior guys in the club have keys. So if they want to go in and use the club, or like some people are going in for extra training on Wednesday, it's not an official class, but if you're, you're free on Wednesday night, you couldn't make a class, you just want to go in and train. That was one thing that was interesting. So when I came back to Ottawa, again, I still consider myself a very junior Wing Chun practitioner, a very junior Sifu. I said I've only been training for 16 years. But there's a lot of guys at my club that are my Hangs, right? So these are guys, now I'm the head instructor of the club, but they've been training longer than I have. So, these guys all have keys to the club, and they're all, they're all welcome to come in and use the kind of club as they kind of see fit.
They don't razz you or nothing, do they, or what?
No, you know what? I got to give them this. The guys are all cool. Obviously, the other option is that they don't have to attend the classes anymore. But we knew that wasn't going to be an issue. Even though I'm not the senior guy, I did have some experience where I was kind of lucky compared to some of them. So again, I mentioned work would cause me to travel, right? So I started off, the first club I went to visit was in Montreal. But then also work would send me down to Toronto. So I got to go and spend some time with my Gun. So I'd go to his club and go to his classes. And then I would found other Sunny Tang clubs around the Toronto area. And I'd go and visit those clubs too. So one thing that I got was a lot of experience with a lot of different hands.
Right.
So, I got the opportunity to train with a lot of different people, which is something that I always instilled in my students up in North Bay. I said, if we ever go out of town, like for example, when we would come to Ottawa, I said, if the numbers permit, I don't ever want to see you training with somebody from our own club, right? If we're driving down to Ottawa, there's no reason for two North Bay people to be training together. So we would come down and,
other than the comfort level, right? That's the only thing.
No, forget the comfort level. No, that's comfort level is for training while we're in North Bay.
Yeah.
So totally. No, we'd often come down, and like I said, we're kind of a central hub here, Ottawa. So the Montreal guys would come. We would have people come from Toronto. We'd have people from North Bay. We'd have people from all over the place. And so, you got a room full of 60 people from, 5 different clubs. There's no reason why you need to be training with somebody from your own club, right? So to me, that's the great advantage of being part of a nice big, Kung Fu family like we are, is we definitely have the opportunity. Like I said, I've been to, all the way out to BC to do Kung Fu. I was actually supposed to be out in BC in May, but obviously COVID put a little dampener on that. So we're waiting for that to get all fixed up and then hop on a flight back out there. But
excellent.
Mm-hmm.
So in doing all this, it sounds like you're, Wing Chun you love it. You big passion of yours because you do your day job, and then you teach, instruct at night, and you train. And do you ever get tired of like, oh, I don't feel like going tonight, or like, how do you?
That's you know what? I'm waiting for the day for it to happen, but it hasn't happened since.
Yeah.
The one thing I have to say, when I was in North Bay, and I mentioned I started to do it nonprofit, the only reason I wouldn't be at class was either if I was sent to Toronto or Ottawa or somewhere for work, in which case in the beginning I would have to cancel class. Once I had a senior student that was high enough that I would let them run a class, I would let them run the class. And I think twice I was sick. One time I even went to the club and opened up, and I tried to stay, but it didn't work out and I had to go home.
Yeah.
And then one other time I called in sick. Even the same thing, since I've been to Ottawa, the only reasons, if I'm not in town, then I won't run class. But the nice thing about being back here is we definitely have a lot of seniors where, like I said, my Hangs are here in the club, so they're more than willing to run classes for me. The other nice part about that is, okay, so I'll back up a little bit. Like I said, we have a sash system, right? So we have a 6 sash system based on the 6 forms, okay? And after those 6 sashes, if you want, you can actually go for the 7th sash. And the 7th one, all that is it's an instructor certification.
Okay.
So you don't have to do it. You could be training 30 years in the family and never bother doing that. And there's no pressure or no need for you to do it. It's not like you learn, the secret 7th form of Wing Chun that nobody knows, or,
right.
We don't keep any secrets in the club. But it's like an instructor certification. And there's quite a few of the guys in the Ottawa club that have that. So sometimes it's good too. Whereas even though I'm the head instructor, there's times when I just want to kind of flip the instructor brain off and do some training. So I can ask one of the other instructors. I'll be like, "Hey, do you want to run class on Thursday?" Because I just want to get in and throw some fists and do some chi sao and not have to worry about trying to explain everything to everybody else.
And let somebody take that time, or give you the time really to train. That's awesome.
And that's it. It's a two-way advantage. I get the time to, like I said, turn my instructor brain off and just enjoy some training on my own with the students in the club. And the other nice part is they get an opportunity to teach and to voice their opinions and talk about things from their point of view. So the nice part is, we all know the same system. We've all been taught by the same instructor and that sort of stuff. But as you know yourself, just because you have 20 people in the room doesn't mean they're all going to tell you the same message the same exact way. And I find that helps the students, right? If I can tell you the sky is blue, the sky is blue, the sky is blue, the sky is blue for 10 years, and you're still not cluing in, and then finally, somebody else comes in and says, "Hey, Shawn, did you know the sky is blue?" And you're like, I never heard it said like that before. Oh my God, the sky is blue. And it's not that the message is different. It's just the way that it's conveyed to you that makes such a great example. So
you say that, because I totally agree with that. Yeah, just
so
a voice or a different way of saying the same thing. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, I was in Toronto last year, and I went to one of my one of the kung fu clubs there, and the Sifu, she's actually, so she's even senior to my Sifu in the family. She's been training longer than my Sifu. And I was visiting her club in downtown Toronto, and she was just, she had one of those days where she was just wiped and exhausted. And she said, "There's no chance you want to run class for me, do you?" Like, so I said, "Sure, I'll do that." So I ran the class at her club. And, I always go in and I kind of give myself like a little, if I'm teaching at somebody else's club, I'll give myself the little out where I'll say, "Look, if I say something different from your Sifu or something like that, there's no way, that I'm telling you that your Sifu is wrong, but I also don't know the individual, as well as their Sifu does. So the Sifu will teach tailored to the person, where I could be giving a lot more general statements." So anyway, I taught the 2-hour class, and it was kind of cool because then afterwards, she came in, she, spoke to the class and said, like, "Okay, so how many people, are going to take something away from today's class?" And then of course, everybody, decides to raise their hand. And then she said, "Now I'm going to ask you something. How many people learned something that was opposite of the way that I've said things before?" And of course, nobody raises their hand because, again, it's not that she wasn't conveying the same messages. It's just a different voice. So it's nice to have that consistency too, where you have somebody else come in and reinforce your ideas, right? It's one thing if your students are only exposed to you as a Sifu, they really have nobody to believe but yourself, right? So there's a little bit of faith there where they've got to place a lot of faith in you that you're correct, if you will.
I see.
But to have other people come in and to reinforce those same ideas is great for the students because it shows them, look, hey, my Sifu didn't just make this stuff up or read it in a book. Or maybe the guy read the same book. I don't know. You never know.
No doubt.
But
so what do you think? Like, roughly, like in Canada, are you all under a umbrella, and roughly how many clubs are there? Are you Canada and US, or are you Canada specifically, or?
So if you want to go just under the Sunny Tang umbrella, so we have clubs in Canada, we have club in France, London, England. I want to say that I think there's one in Poland. There's a couple of clubs. Even Sunny Tang himself, he taught in England before he came to Canada. So when he left Hong Kong, he went to England first. And then he came to Canada after. So he had a small club there in England. I don't think that one's still active. I don't think there's anybody that took over that club or anything. But no, that's the nice part is we have people that are kind of all over the place. Under the greater Moyat umbrella, if you want to go up kind of one more lineage, then yeah, we're everywhere. Like there's guys over in Europe, there's guys down in Brazil, all over the United States. There's so that's a nice part too. Is I've got open invitation. I was do you want to go to Brazil? Not obviously right now, but I can hop on a plane and go to Brazil. I've got a place to stay. I've got a club to train at. You don't have to worry about anything. It's fantastic. So,
and it would be something similar to kind of how things are run in your club.
Actually, so that's one of the things that I really enjoy doing. Is I love watching other people from other lineages, and not to discredit them, but I love discussing differences and reasons why. So I really like to analyze things like, again, if we do something so simple as a tonsao, for example. Okay, so if I say, in our family we do a tonsao like this, and you say, oh, in my family we do a tonsao slightly differently, boom, now you've piqued my interest. And the reason is I find that you can learn from anybody. They don't even have to be a Sifu, right? You can learn from juniors, you can learn from seniors. So last year, I had the pleasure of going to San Francisco and spending a few days at one of the Moyak clubs out there. And one of the first things we did at the end of the first night that we were there, at the end of the first class, is we went form for form. So we literally said, okay, I'll do Silam Tao form, and then one of those guys do the Silam Tao form. Okay, we'll do the Chum Q form. One of you guys do the Chum Q. And we stopped at Buji. Okay, so we only went through the three empty hand forms. But it was neat to see the Silam Tao was more or less, we'll call it identical.
Yeah.
Okay. A couple of variations, but nothing too crazy. It could almost be attributed to personal variation rather than even club variation.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. And then by the time we get to the Chum Q level, okay, now there's a little bit more variety of changes. It's like, okay, cool. And then by the time you get to the Buji level, now it was even more differences. So I can only imagine if we went through the dummy and the rest of the stuff, and we were out in California actually for a competition. So we did demo the way that we do the knife form, which I know is very different from the way that they do it. And we had altered it slightly because this was for a Pan Am Wushu Championships that we were going to California. So we have a traditional version of the knife form, and then one that's a little bit more flashy, to get a few points from the judges. But no, it was good. And it's, like I said, it's neat to see the differences. And I hone in on those differences, and I'll ask people to explain. And I love it when people have an answer for me. Two of the things, or I guess one main thing that I hate in Wing Chun, and not just Wing Chun, but in martial arts in general, is when you ask somebody why they do something and they say, well, that's the way that we do it here. Perfect. All you did was just tell me you don't understand anything.
Sure. Yeah.
So, I always tell my students, I don't want parrots. Okay. I can teach a parrot, 50 English words, but you can never have a conversation with it because it doesn't understand the language. So if you don't have an understanding, every single person in my club should be able to explain to you why they're doing what they're doing. And that's what I love. So you go to these other clubs and you get that explanation, and it starts your gears turning, and you're like, okay, why are they doing that? Is it better or worse or just different? And if it is any of those things, why is it different? And we got to remember that people come from different angles at Wing Chun, right? They train certain things a different way with a different intention. And intention is a huge reason why I think you see a lot of the differences in Wing Chun. There's a lot of variations, even the Yip Man lineage alone, let alone the guys that are outside the Yip Man lineage. And it's a lot of that, I think, comes down to intention. Another thing that I've really focused on lately, this is just from a kind of a personal aspect, is trying to get very clean translations from the Cantonese to English. And, I find that it's very hard. When I was doing Taekwondo, I got to the point where we taught our Taekwondo primarily in English at first when you're learning it. But by the time I got to the level that I was at, I could run an entire Taekwondo class in Korean without speaking any English.
Wow.
They even had a student that moved here from Korea that couldn't speak English, but I could teach him in class and he would do exactly what I said and do exactly what I wanted because of the language. because the Korean to English is a very clean translation. The Korean alphabet, so we even learned to write in Korean, and the Korean alphabet's actually fairly easy to learn. The Chinese language, however, is completely different, especially if you look at, and again, I'm just saying just within the Yip Man lineage itself, right? Yip Man originally, he didn't even speak Cantonese, right? He was from Foshan, so it's a slightly different dialect. Right. So when he moves to Hong Kong and he starts teaching these guys and they say, oh, Sifu, how's my Pak Sao? And he's like, yeah, that's great or whatever. And he just walks away. Doesn't even mean that that's what they called the term when he was training it in Foshan. He's just like, hey, whatever that guy said was great. The guy could have totally made the term up. Right. And then now here it is, some guy gets on a plane and moves over here to North America and is trying to teach us, non-Cantonese and non-Chinese speaking people these terms. And I find you get a lot of variation in what people call things. And I find that very interesting because again, just from our family point of view, I like to hone in on the language and say, okay, what does this term mean? And then what is the intent behind it?
Right.
Okay. So like a very basic example would be something like a Pak Sao. So Pak Sao translates to slapping hand, right? It's like we meet, we're good friends, we haven't seen each other, and we high five, right? Sure. Or, you're out at the theater and somebody does a great performance. You clap your hands. That's a Pak Sao. You're slapping. There's a slapping action. I find a lot of people in Wing Chun, when they end up doing a Pak Sao, they end up pushing, right? So there's no slap action to their hand. It ends up being a push where they're pushing the opponent off the line. So, and I'm not saying that that's wrong, okay, because in that family, that could be their intent.
Right.
So it's definitely not, but in our family, the intent is for it to slap the technique off the line, okay, so that I don't have to apply that constant pushing pressure. So it's understanding of the language and the background and where that comes from that really lets you dig deep into the system.
Wow. That's really cool.
And then, like I said, I've just been lucky. I've been lucky to surround myself with people like my Sifu. My Sifu's been doing Wing Chun for over 30 something years. Colin Young is still active in Toronto. So Sunny Tang runs, they run out of Scarborough. He's been teaching Wing Chun for over 50 years.
Wow.
Okay, so he's a Moyat student. He trained under Moyat in Hong Kong. They actually even worked together for a while. And then he also had the fortune, if you want to say, is he lived right across the street from Yip Man. So he was a Moyat student, but he lived across the street from Yip Man. So he got to spend a lot of time with Yip Man also, right? So you have this kind of direct connection. And this guy is still around teaching Wing Chun here in Canada. And he's
that's amazing. Yeah.
So he started Wing Chun, I think he was 17 or 18 years old, and he's up in the 70s now. So he's got lots of time, and they said he's been teaching Wing Chun since I want to say 1970. He opened the club in England. Wow. Right? And he moved to Canada. He opened the first club in Toronto in 1973. So,
geez, just well established, in the whole, and then it just grows from there. Obviously, there's quality in the Wing Chun, in the line. I mean, otherwise it wouldn't expand, right? Well, I guess it depends. I mean, people who develop their skills can choose to run this lineage, or like, I'll open up my own thing, right?
Yeah. And I mean, definitely my lineage is, as I've said, it's under the Sunny Tang lineage. Do I think that that's, necessarily for everybody? No. But I also love listening to guys from other lineages for the same reason. Like they come from different backgrounds and different things, right? You have guys from the Chu Shang Tin lineage. They do a lot of internal stuff. He was known as the king of the Silum Tao form.
Sure.
And you got the guys on the Wang Chunlong lineage, right? He's the guy who tested, right? He's the guy who went out and did the Bamo fights and tested the Wing Chun, and then would come back to Yip Man and say, hey, I remember sequence number 17 that we have in the dummy. Yeah, I tried that last night. Then look, I got a split on my lip. Let's change that, right? So
Yeah.
Even Yip Man, when he was teaching his Wing Chun in Hong Kong, it was ever evolving, right? So what we learn is the package that was presented by Yip Man over time. But even that is not, Yip Man definitely didn't learn all his Wing Chun from one person either, right? So, it's constantly changing, and we've got all these different people in the game. And I find everybody's got something valid, that they can learn. I'm reading a Wing Chun book right now. I'm reading a Chum Q book. Previous to that, I was reading a Silam Tao book. And I saw something in it, and it really made me raise an eyebrow. And I was like, okay, I definitely need to talk to the author about this book because I want to know why they do this way. And I think I know why. And, but I want to see, am I right? Because if it is, that's kind of cool that I've got the idea down. But if I'm not right, then I want to learn why is it that they're doing that way.
Sure.
So,
yeah.
Just very basic. That's different from the way we do things.
Yeah. Wow. Excellent conversation here. I don't want to keep you too long here. I know we're coming up to an hour here. So kind of some last thoughts here.
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to dig into just how you go about kind of structuring your class, or how. Actually, I'm going to back up a little bit because it sounds like you break everything down, so weapons aren't until later. Is that what you're?
Generally, yeah. So we tend, the order that we stick to, and I know it's not the order that all the lineages do, but we go, Silam Tao, Chum Kyu, Buji, then the dummy, the pole, and the knives.
Yeah.
I know there's definitely other lineages that will go Silam Tao, Chum Kyu, then teach some of the dummy, then flip back to Buji, and then complete the dummy. We also, for the longest time in our lineage, the knives were kind of like the gift near the end. So you had to stick around for quite a while to get those. And then I think what happened was they started to realize a lot of the guys that know that stuff are starting to get up there in years. Right. And if they start passing away before they've passed on the knowledge, and not just, teach the person something, but ensure that that person has a really good, solid understanding and foundation of it, that knowledge is going to disappear. So we started now, I don't want to say we're fast tracking people, but, you can start learning aspects of the pole. You can start learning aspects of the dummy before you're at that quote unquote level, right?
Sure. I like that.
If you look, I watched you did a video, I think last week, maybe the week before, the introduction to the dummy.
Yeah.
Where you did the first piece on both sides, right? You want to say the right and left side, however you want to describe it.
Totally, yeah.
That's a very, the motions that you did, I think, are more or less identical to the way we do them. So other than some stepping footwork that maybe isn't there for the Silam Tao level practitioner, right, or the very new practitioner, I should say. But the techniques are all very basic techniques. There's nothing in there that is, mind-blowing Wing Chun in those two sections. So why can't somebody that has a foundation in their Wing Chun and is learning to move their feet learn how to do that section of that form, right? So, but yeah, overall, I know that the people that are on the podcast won't get to see this, but I'll kind of explain what it is. And it's just coincidence that it's sitting here. So there's we have this thing that's called our student achievement passport. And we literally open it up and it's like, okay, there's the sash and there's all the different level things that you need. So it's, has it been presented to you? So you've seen it. So now all the instructors in the class know that it's been taught to you. And then have you achieved that level? Once you've got all the achievements checked off, then guess what? You can move up to the next one and you can kind of go through it and that sort of stuff. So,
oh my goodness, it looks like, I don't want to take away from that because that's amazing. It's something similar when you're an apprentice. You have a blue book. It's just
exactly.
Have you done these skill sets, and then you get signed off on them? That's awesome.
It's identical. And like I said, it's my Sifu's background as a teacher, obviously, push that forward, that kind of idea. And so how do we break down our classes? Typically we'll go in and do a warm up. Things are obviously a little different with COVID right now. Here in Ontario, we're not allowed to have contact with people that are outside of our social bubble. So training Wing Chun right now is very difficult. But we'll go in and do a warm up, and then typically we'll start with forms a little bit. There may be a night or two on occasion where we'll go heavy into a form. But also there's times where we'll just use a little bit of the training time to see the form, see what the students should be practicing at home on their own. Because really the truth is you could be doing the forms at home on your own. You don't need a partner for the forms. Mm-hmm. So if I'll use you as an example, say you're at the Silam Tao level, okay, and we've shown you, what we call section 1, and you've been practicing it now at home for 2 weeks, and you come back in and you need some corrections. Okay, we'll spend a little bit of time doing some corrections on the forms. Boom. Okay, you've got that in your mind. Now you can go home and you can train it now for the next week or so, and then we'll come back and we'll check up on you again. So we don't need to spend all night just going through that form over and over and over again, right? You can do that when you're at home on your own. The bonus of being in a club with other people is the opportunity to train with other people. So we'll start things off with some basic hand drills. Well, the first thing we teach a beginner is how to throw some punches, right? So how to throw a Wing Chun punch. That way, I say their quote, useful to the rest of the class, right? They don't have to know any Wing Chun techniques. As long as they know how to punch, they can be a partner for somebody. I can take somebody on day 1 and have them punch at you, and you can go through every single hand technique that and they don't have to even know what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So, and then after that, obviously, we'll build on some hand drills. We have some, we do the Dan Chi Sao exercise. That's one thing I find is unfortunate. I find some of the lineages, I think people are in a huge rush to get to two-handed Chi Sao. And they tend to be skipping by that sometimes. And for me, that's a huge foundation in my Wing Chun is comes from the Dan Chi Sao exercise. So we definitely make sure that we spend some time on that. And then obviously we'll get into the two-handed Chi Sao. And Chi Sao in our club is not a sparring. It's not a fighting thing. It's a cooperative exercise for people to test their skill sets. So we do have some basic things that we force people to learn, some certain combinations and that sort of stuff before we let them go free. And then a lot of nights we'll do things where I said, okay, hey, Colin, you get, you and your side of the room, you guys get an attack. You can do any attack you want. And then after that attack, you got to let Shawn defend. Because if I don't let you defend and if I don't let you take the time to be successful, how can you improve, right? If I'm, say I'm the senior and you've only been training for a year, I know you've been training longer than that, but for sake of the conversation, if I'm constantly just beating on you, you're not going to have any chance at success. And if you don't have any chance at success, then how are you going to improve yourself as a Kung Fu practitioner? Yeah. So in our club, the focus is always on the defender to be the most successful person. Okay. The guy who's, on the defense. And then again, this is at a very basic to intermediate level, right? Where we keep control of the Chi Sao, and it's nothing but an exercise. It's important, but it's no more important than the forms or any of the other drills that you do in class. And then, you get a couple of senior practitioners and they want to, touch hands and kind of go at each other and kind of see kind of where things go for sure. Yeah. And then we move right up to, we call them Mai San Zhang live dummy drills, where guys will come in and attack and the person is expected to defend themselves. So initially we'll start with Wing Chun attacks only. Okay. So I can only come in and, say step at you with a straight punch, or a double punch or something like that. Or I can throw like a Wing Chun kick at you. And then later we'll add more techniques. So it's okay. Yeah. Now you can come in, I can jab, cross, hook, uppercut. I teach things like roundhouse kicks and all that sort of stuff that are from outside our Wing Chun lineage. We don't use roundhouse kicks in our lineage. I know some guys do, but I still teach that technique because if you've never seen one, how are you going to defend against one? Right. Yeah. Right? So, and this is where I think we have a great advantage at our club, where we have guys with tons of different experience from tons of different martial arts. Mm-hmm. Is they'll say, okay, I had one guy who's been training since the early 80s. He's into karate and all these locks and this sort of stuff. And he'd say, yeah, okay, well, I could lock your hand like this. I said, okay, go ahead and do it. Yeah. And then when he does it, and I escape and he's like, how the heck did you do that? I'm like, that's Wing Chun, man. It's designed to get you out of these kind of situations. So yeah. Nice. Yeah, like I said, we like to have a lot of fun. We train, we train the knives, the pole.
Is that, like, just to kind of dig into that a little bit, is that geared like off on the side, those senior students that are at that level, they'll have some time with the knives or the
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sometimes we'll keep, so everybody's in one class, right? So we don't have a junior, intermediate, senior class. When I was teaching Taekwondo, that's very much the way that the school is split, right? You'd have a junior class, an intermediate class, and an advanced class, a sparring class, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
In the Wing Chun, in our Wing Chun club, it's all one class. You know, the guy who started day one and the guy who's been there 25 years, they're in the room together and they're training together.
Yeah.
There's times when seniors and juniors will be together for the entire night, right? And then there's other times where it's like, no, juniors need to spend time with juniors and seniors need to spend time with seniors. And
Same.
yeah,
I mean, our club is the same. I mean, not identical, but similar. And I mean, just I'm curious to kind of how you run things. So
well, and things have evolved over time. So again, so when I was going, say, for my second sash grading one time, you know, after our portion of the grading was over, we were kicked out of the club. We were told to leave. And I was like, okay, that's kind of strange. And it was because the guys that were grading later were starting to do things on the wooden dummy. And at the time, we didn't, as juniors, get to see what they were learning on the dummy. So it was kind of like all dummy techniques were taught privately. And this is before Wing Chun exploded on the internet, right? And this is the thing, is the teaching needs to change with time, because the truth is, if I'm a Wing Chun guy and I'm only at the Chum Q level and I want to learn Buji, I can hop on YouTube and find 8 million Buji videos. I'm not saying they're going to be done the same way we do it, and I'm not going to say that they're good quality, but the truth is that I can learn it.
It's out there. Yeah, the information is out there. Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, we don't hide anything, and it's not that we wouldn't teach the people later on, but it's just, I find sometimes people will get distracted by things that aren't at their level. Yeah. So, you know, a lot of different lineages will say, okay, Buji is kind of like the emergency techniques, the things, you know, when you tend to steer away from the basics of the Silum Pao and Chum Q forms. Do I want somebody that's only been training 6 months watching these things and going, hey, how come that guy's not staying square to his opponent? You know, when you're telling me that I have to stay square to the guy the whole time.
Right.
So rather than have people, you know, get confused, it was just easier sometimes to keep things away from other people. But
yeah, makes total sense for sure. To wrap up here, Colin, I know I don't know if I gave you a heads up on this question, but I usually like to ask most people I have on just you know, a general tip, and you can break it down to, you know, a beginner, intermediate, advanced, or kind of if it's a tip for everybody training, or, you know, just your tip for how to improve something they can improve daily, or what you're, you know, what you recommend.
I'll steal one from my Sifu. One of his favorite sayings when we were training, and he still uses this one today, is don't be in a hurry to look bad. Don't be in a hurry to look bad. Right. So gotcha. Take your time. Like any other skill in life, the slower you work at it, the more detail you can get out of it, you know, the more it's going to imprint the correct way on your brain. You know, I'm going to jump into your realm here as a welder. Okay, you're a welder. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you this, you don't ever want to see me weld anything. Chewed bubble gum is great compared to what I can pull off. Sure. Okay, but if I said to you, okay, to run a bead, you know, 6 inches long between these two pieces of metal, and I want you to do it as fast as you can, and, you know, you're a junior person, it's, you know, the stick's going to get stuck. It's going to be breaking off. Like I said, chewed bubble gum will be a great description on how that would look. Exactly. But if you go slow and methodically, right, and you take your time and really see what's happening to the metals and see how they're pooling together, see how the heat is affecting the two of them, see how that joint is coming along, it's going to look a little better if you take your time doing it. It's the same thing for your Kung Fu, right? Don't ever be in a rush to get to the next level. That's going to come to you when it's the right time. So I always like to tell people, you know, take your time, learn what you're learning at the level that you're learning at. And when it comes time to move on, it's going to be a natural progression. And Other than that, like I said before, you can learn from anybody. So whether they're junior, senior, a Sifu, not a Sifu, in your lineage, not in your lineage, open your ears, keep your lips shut, and take the opportunity to listen to what everybody has to say.
Awesome. Yeah, that's amazing. I love it. Perfect. Thank you so much, Colin.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on the show.
One last question for you. How do people connect with you if they want to get a hold of you or come to your club there out in Ottawa? How do people find you?
Yeah, I'm online. I'm on Facebook under Colin Young. I got a fancy Wing Chun picture up there for a profile picture.
Yeah.
We have sunnytangottawa.com as a website. We've got a Facebook page. North Bay Wing Chun, .com is another webpage. In our lineage, we spell Wing Chun the weird way. We use the VINGTSUN. So yeah, it's a little different than the way some of the guys spell it out there. Lots of different variations there, but so that's about it really. Facebook, Instagram, we're at STKFO on Instagram. We're all over the place.
Awesome. Social website there. What did you say, Sunny Tang?
Yeah, sunnytangottawa.com.
Okay. And then Facebook and Instagram. Perfect.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Colin. I really appreciate our talk today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on the show. And maybe we'll do it again in the future when you go on to season 2. Who knows?
I love it. Yeah, no doubt. Thanks.
And yeah, like I said, I got a great buddy of mine that I grew up with lives out there in Sherwood Park. So you never know. Maybe we'll get to meet in person one day.
Yeah, let me know. Let me know when you're out in this neck of woods. I'd love to connect there.
Yeah, excellent.
Awesome. Talk to you later, Colin.
Yeah, thanks, Shawn. Take care.
Get you there.